Hi, I'm Kat, and the word for today in Romanian is șocant. 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 Well done, guys, you just said shocking. The case of Mark Brown is one of the most shocking of all court cases across the UK, let alone Sussex. 41-year-old Mark was found guilty of the murders of two young mums in 2021. Leah Ware was killed around May 7, 2021 on Mark's farm in Hastings, but her body was never found and no trace of her has ever been discovered. Alexandra Morgan, a mom of two, was killed by Mark on November 14, 2021 before he disposed of her body in an oil drum turned into an incinerator. 33-year-old Leah Ware from Hastings was a mother of three children between 6 and 12 years old. She was intelligent, caring and loving to everyone she met, but sadly she had a history of mental illness and drug use and didn't have custody of her children. Leah's sister Zara was left just devastated. She believes that Mark preyed on her sister and took advantage of her loneliness. 41-year-old Mark Brown, a former builder, although a family man with three boys, was constantly unfaithful to his partner, 44-year-old Lisa Clark. He worked in the groundwork industry but also had other jobs, including as a security guard, a pilot vehicle driver for a static caravan company, and buying and reselling cars. He had no criminal record and he showed no signs of being violent, but he secretly used a website where sex workers advertised their services, and he spent inheritance money to fund his lifestyle, meeting up to 10 escorts. He rented a barn and a number of outbuildings at Little Bridge Farm on the outskirts of Hastings, where he would work on cars. But Mark also used the farm buildings for regular sexual encounters with escorts that he met online. In 2018, he contacted Leah through the adultwork.com website and paid her for sex. Their meetings evolved into a relationship, and by the end of the year, Mark had paid for Leah to live in a flat in Hastings for 6 months. Lisa, Mark's partner, had absolutely no idea about this. By May 2019, after the flat lease expired, Leah moved to Little Bridge Farm, first living in a caravan. When the landlord found out that Leah was living there, he told her to leave because there was no planning permission for anyone to live on the site. That's when Mark moved her into an old shipping container located in the barn. She got two dogs, a Pomeranian called Lady and a Mastiff called Duke, as well as a horse, Bertie, and also some goats. Mark was very controlling of Leah and would lock her in the barn when he was at work. He also used restraints and a gag on her during sex and liked her to be subservient to him. Between May the 5th and May the 6th, 2021, Leah spent the evening of the 5th into the early hours of May the 6th with her friend and convicted drug dealer Jack Tyler. They both took drugs and they had sex. This was the last confirmed sighting of Leah by anyone other than Mark. On May the 7th at 8:55 a.m. was the last outgoing contact from Leah's phone. The phone left the network in a disorderly shutdown that evening. This means either that the battery from the phone was removed or the phone was in a location which had no signal. The police believe that Leah Ware died that day, on May the 7th. Leah has never been seen alive by friends or neighbors ever since. On May the 8th, 2021, Leah's phone returns to the network at 8:57 a.m. and comes in and out of the network before being switched off manually for the last time at 2:38 p.m. One of the last messages Zara, Leah's sister, received from her was, quote, "I will always be your big sister and be there for you and protect you," end of quote. Just a day after Leah was last seen, Mark rehomed her dog Duke with his sister. Mark also disposed of the static caravan Leah lived in at the beginning by setting fire to it.
On the 7th of May last year, Leah Ware's phone shows she was at Little Bridge Farm, her mobile connecting to the local cell tower throughout the day. Around 6:25 that evening, Mark Brown's phone also connects to the same cell site. He and Leah were together on the farm. Then between 7:31 and 9:30, total blackout. Both phones suddenly cut off from the network. They were both in the shipping container with the door closed. This was when Brown murdered Leah.
Leah was an animal lover and she was devoted to her pet. Her pet, Lady, the Pomeranian dog, was said to be completely loyal to her, even following her to the bathroom. On May 20th, 2021, Mark rejoins the adult work website which he used to meet Leah in 2018. 34-year-old Alexandra Morgan, a former dog groomer, was a mother of 2 sons living in Sissinghurst, Kent. She was an escort for the adult work website. On June the 8th, 2021, Mark met Alexandra for sex at her home in Sissinghurst near Cranbrook, Kent, for the first time after booking an appointment through adult work. On June 13, 2021, Mark sent messages to an old school friend of his, Elizabeth Howard, saying, quote, "I'm going to be very careful how I word this. It happened again. Not very long ago when disposing of something. It's a very unpleasant thing to do. An oil drum, 5 liters of diesel, and hey presto, there's not very much left. It gets hot, very hot. It glows almost white. The things I have done weigh heavily on my heart, on my head, and my soul. A psychopath with a conscience. It's a joke, really. I've done monstrous things, but I couldn't do anything to you. You deserve better than me. You're amazing." End of quote. He referred to Leah's disappearance and what he had done to her. On June 21st, 2021, Mark met with Alexandra at Little Bridge Farm for sex, and again on 7 more occasions during August and September. Around 6 months after they first met, Mark texted telling her of a business opportunity at the hotel where he worked as a night security guard, which would earn her around £100,000 for 3 to 5 days of work. On October 23rd, over WhatsApp, he offered her an escort job. Alexandra arranged for her 2 sons to stay with her parents, and on November 13, her parents collected her children and the dog to allow her to go on a trip for 4 days. She told family members that she's going on a spa weekend with a friend, but she was in fact meeting Mark for sex at Little Bridge Farm. On 14th of November 2021, which was Remembrance Sunday, Alexandra leaves home and is seen buying fuel on CCTV at Ashwell Garage in Cranbrook at 7:20 a.m. She arrives at Little Bridge Farm at 7:58 a.m. in her cream Mini Cooper. CCTV showed the Mini driving up a track, followed by a gold Jaguar being driven by Mark. She was never seen alive again.
In relation to the investigation into the murder of Alex Morgan, this was initially started out in a missing person inquiry, which Kent Police picked up in the middle of November 2021. Alex, 34 years of age at the time, 2 very young children, single mum, trying to make ends meet. She'd planned to go away for the weekend and she was due to come back on a Wednesday, and when she didn't return, her parents started to have some real concerns for her. Kent Police then picked up those inquiries in relation to her going missing. A number of inquiries took place, a search of her home address, some checks on her mobile phone, a court history, a data sessions to try and understand who the last person she was in contact with, whereabouts she could have been. Subsequently, they gave an indication that Alex could have headed towards the Sussex area. One of the key things I wanted to do, clearly, was to find Alex, but I always believed her car would lead us to finding her. And that was the objective that I set our team, was tracking Alex's vehicle by CCTV. A number of officers were tasked with that inquiry. And that was a substantial inquiry because we were trying to track Alex's vehicle from basically Cranbrook all the way to Westfield, where we eventually saw her last sighting. That's a distance of about 18 miles, and it took them over a day and a half to reach a point where we last saw Alex Morgan's vehicle with her in it. Now, subsequently, that was quite key because what that CCTV did show was her turning into a farm track, which didn't appear to go anywhere. However, she followed a gold Jaguar onto that site, of who we now know belonged to Mark Brown and was driven by Mark Brown at that time. We carried on with our inquiries to establish where Alex had gone, and the main line of inquiry there was still viewing the CCTV. We had a last sighting now, and within about 36 hours, I believe, we never saw Alex Morgan come off that site in her Mini.
Alex didn't leave the site, but Mark left that afternoon in his Jaguar. He returned in a white work van shortly after 10 p.m. and then left in Alexandra's Mini at around 12:35 a.m., returning an hour later and then leaving again in his van. Mark later said that once in his workshop, Alexandra died after she accidentally slipped on some tools lying on the floor. He said that she flew through the air like a cartoon character slipping on a banana skin and hit her head on the floor, suffering a catastrophic head injury. He said that even though he tried first aid to save her, he was unsuccessful and she died. But instead of calling emergency services, he decided to cover up her death, burning her body in an oil drum. When Alexandra failed to return home on Wednesday, 17th of November 2021 to pick up her children from her parents, the parents raised the alarm. Mark texted a friend asking for help to move the Mini, Alexandra's car, and on November 17, Mark, with the help of his friend, moved her car to Holmhurst Lane, St. Leonard's, where it was left with false number plates. Mark then dumped the oil barrel containing Alexandra's remains into a skip at a building site that he worked at in Sevenoaks. So of course that, when Alexandra didn't return to her parents to pick up her son and dog as planned, on November 18th they reported her missing. On November 20th, Kent Police's Major Crime Unit started an investigation. Police discovered that Alexandra left a trail of clues for them to follow, including a note which read, quote, "Check postcode TN34 5NY Rock Lane opposite Bartlett's," end of quote. This was the location of the farm in Hastings. And it kind of feels as if Alexandra knew that something was going to happen to her, or perhaps she left this as a precaution just in case. As a result of Alexandra leaving these clues, police was able to follow her movements as her car left her home and drove the 20 miles to Little Bridge Farm. On November 23rd, CCTV footage is found showing Alexandra's car following Mark's Jaguar up the track to Little Bridge Farm. Kent Police closed access to the farm. Mark arrives and gives a non-custodial interview offering DNA and fingerprints. He admits to meeting Alexandra for sex, but he said that she left after 45 minutes. On November 24th, Mark told his colleague Alan Downs that he is about to be arrested for a double murder. On 25th of November, he is arrested on suspicion of Alexandra's murder. During the search for Alexandra, police searched Mark's work van and found a prescription for medication for Leah Ware, the first woman that Mark met through the website. On November 26th, Kent Police contacted Sussex Police trying to find Leah as a potential witness. They immediately launched a missing person investigation for her. Leah had previously given Mark permission to collect her medication, and he continued to do so even after she went missing. He also withdrew money from her bank account. Mark had also begun giving conflicting accounts of what happened to Leah, telling neighbors that she was in a mental hospital while claiming to other friends that she had committed suicide or passed away due to mental health problems. He would also refer to Leah in the past tense when talking about her to a friend. Now, you remember when I told you about Elizabeth, Mark's school friend? Well, they reconnected online in the last year, and whenever Mark would talk to her about Leah, he would always use the past tense. He would show Elizabeth photos of Leah, and when she told him that Leah is just stunning, Mark replied, quote, "She was, and will always live on in my heart. She has peace now," end of quote. He also told Elizabeth that he had been having an affair with Leah and she miscarried his baby at 7 months. He said that they were together for 4 years and their relationship was very complicated. But it seems that tensions grew between Mark and Leah when she pressed him to leave his partner of 14 years, the mother of his children. Little Bridge Farm was a set of sheds and containers used as a workshop and lockup, where Mark would let friends park their vans and lorries. In March 2021, one friend found Leah locked inside the shed at the farm, with Leah later texting him saying, "Mark locks me in." Leah also told friends that Mark used a gag on her during sex and he wanted to take pictures of her in the boot of a car. In text messages that she sent to Mark, who also wanted to take photos of her tied up and gagged, Leah told him that she loved him. Mark began contacting Alexandra at the end of May 2021, and he sent a picture of her to Elizabeth, his school friend, on June 28, saying, quote, "That's my friend Alex. I didn't do anything and could have," end of quote. He had also taken pictures of a Shell garage near her home. On November 28, 2021, Mark was charged with Alexandra's murder. On December the 1st, bone and tooth fragments were found in the oil barrel that Mark dumped in a skip at the Seven Oaks building site in Kent, where he had been carrying out groundworks on a project. Forensic odontologists said that the teeth were Alexandra's. Hair straighteners and jewelry belonging to Alexandra were also discovered in the skip. Alexandra was killed by Mark and he destroyed her remains by burning her body in a homemade incinerator in the oil drum. On December 8, believing at this point that Leah Ware was also killed, Sussex police changed their missing person case into a murder case. On January the 7th, 2022, the search at Little Bridge Farm ends. Police found bones belonging to a Pomeranian dog in a lake on the farm's grounds with the skeletal remains attached to a dumbbell with a chain. They made the discovery when they drained the lake. They believed that these were the bones of Leah's pet, Lady, and both Leah and Lady died at the farm on the same day. After seizing Mark's phone, police officers found that he watched violent and extreme pornography. He searched for terms including kidnapped, raped, brutal, kink dating, as well as other terms. Police said that all of these culminated in the murders. Detective Superintendent Andy Wolstenholme said, quote, "There was no evidence Brown harmed anyone in the past. He had no criminal history of sexual violence. We contacted all individuals, less than 10 people he had met through the adult website. They all said that Brown did not give any indication he was violent in any way. Mark only used one phone and was quite reckless in how he went about his business. His partner Lisa wasn't looking through his phone. He had lots of jobs which kept him very busy, and in 2018 he received inheritance money which would fund his lifestyle of paying for sex," end of quote. Libby Clark, senior prosecutor at the Crown Prosecution Service, said, quote, "He has two sides to him. The fact he has a family at home but was seeing Leah Ware shows he was living a double life. He can endear himself to people, so with no criminal history and no indication of violence or aggression makes him more puzzling as a person," end of quote. On February the 1st, Mark is charged with Leah Ware's murder as well. On February the 4th, he appears at Lewes Crown Court charged with both murders. He pleads not guilty to the murder of Alexandra, but after the discovery of her remains, he did admit to destroying her body with fire, claiming that she fell and died on the farm in an accident. On 25th of March 2022, Mark denied killing Leah and his trial began on October 17. He claimed that she had gone off with travelers and was still alive and well. He told the jury that they broke up in early 2021 and as far as he knows, she is still alive. During the trial, Mark tried to blacken the name of Leah Ware by claiming that Leah killed her own dog and neglected the goats, leading to the death. Mark told the jury he had met Leah around 10 years before he stumbled across her on the adult website. After some time spent living in a flat which Mark rented, Leah moved back to Little Bridge Farm, and according to the prosecution, she lived there so that Mark could control her, but Mark said that she was never under his control. Mark confirmed that his partner Lisa found out about his affair at the end of 2020, but he said that he would do anything to keep his children. Mr. Atkinson, the prosecuting barrister, then asked him, "Is that what you did on May the 7th, Mr. Brown?" Followed by, "You did anything that needed to be done?" Mark replied no to both questions. Mr. Atkinson also asked him if he liked to keep Leah locked up, referring to a padlocked door on the outside of the shipping container where Leah lived. But Mark denied this, saying that the only friend he tried to stop Leah from seeing was Tara Casey because he didn't like her drug use. Previous witnesses had given evidence in relation to Leah's love for animals, her dogs, Duke and Lady, her horse Bertie, and her goats. Mr. Atkinson brought this up in relation to his claims that Leah killed Lady and caused the death of her goats. "This is you trying to blacken her name in relation to animals," Mr. Atkinson alleged. "I'm not trying to blacken anyone's name at all," Mark responded. "I'm only giving you these quotes because it would make such a huge difference to be able to actually see the interaction, the questions, the reaction, the answers, but unfortunately we can't see in court. So I thought that maybe I'm going to try, and kind of paint a picture by reading all of these quotes." Mr. Atkinson told the jury that Leah would have been unwell had she killed her dog, as Mark alleged. He then told him, quote, "You don't call her, you don't look for her, you don't go out in a vehicle to look for her, you don't see what she has taken with her, you don't call anyone to see if they know what happened to her. Did you call Woodlands? Did you call the police?" When Mark said no, Mr. Atkinson said, "So you did the square root of nothing at all." Mr. Atkinson, King's Counsel, asked about Mark's actions on May the 8th and the cell site records relating to this day. Mr. Atkinson said that Leah's phone began talking with the network at 8:57 a.m. on May the 8th before stopping at 9:04 a.m. having been off since the previous night. It talks again with the network at 12 p.m. and stops 9 minutes later before starting again at 2:36 p.m. and stopping at 2:38 p.m. The barrister alleged that this was consistent with Mark opening and closing the shipping container. After Mark said that he wouldn't have any need to open or close the container, the barrister said, "You would if Leah's body was in there, wouldn't you?" "Leah's body wasn't in there though, so why would it matter?" Mark replied. Like I said, too bad I can't show you any court footage because I couldn't find any. I'm not even sure that there is any. But I have to tell you that reading everything, I really love this Mr. Atkinson barrister. On November 29th, the jury retired for the verdict, and on December the 1st, the jury of 10 men and 2 women found Mark Brown guilty of murder. On January 13, 2023, after a 7-week trial where he refused to attend court for his sentencing, remaining in his prison cell, Judge Justice Nicholas Hilliard sentenced Mark Brown to life in prison with a minimum term of 49 years, taking away 380 days served on remand in his absence at Hove Crown Court. The judge said he had considered a full life tariff but felt it didn't meet the necessary standard. The 2 sentences will be served concurrently. He will be 90 years old before he is eligible for parole.
Mark Brown was raised to a suspect and he was subsequently arrested. The inquiry then took us to another stage whilst Mark Brown was in custody, and that was to examine the place where he worked at the time. We know he worked for a local construction company, and we started to do some inquiries with them. We were searching that particular place for any clues that could lead us to Alex. And in conversation with the landowner, he actually reported that Mark Brown had asked if he could just put something in the skip, if he didn't mind, that was at that location, which led us to check that skip. And within there was an oil barrel. Within that oil barrel was a carrier bag. And within that carrier bag was a hairdryer and a pair of hair straighteners, amongst some other items. We sent those off for DNA testing, and very quickly they came back as the DNA of Alex Morgan. However, there's still a lot of work to do. And at that time, we had senior CSI or crime scene examiners at that location. And they located something which didn't look quite right. There were a number of very small items, about the size of your fingernail, at the bottom of a oil drum, which had clearly been set fire to. And upon their recommendation and advice, they advised to get a forensic anthropologist in to have a look at this, and they subsequently came down, had a look at some of these fragments that they'd found, and very quickly they were able to say they were human bone of at least one person. Within there, and they're again very small, but within there were a number of teeth. So once we had established and recovered all those fragments of bone and teeth, we employed the services of a forensic odontologist who was able to do a very accurate assessment of that, and through the records was able to say that those teeth belonged to Alex Morgan. It was a very difficult conversation to have with Alex's parents, as you can imagine. It's relief in some sense, but I mean the trauma and angst they must have felt by knowing what probably happened to Alex may live with them forever. And that kind of brought us to the stage where we were satisfied we found Alex, we were satisfied we got the right person in custody, charged, and we were then building towards the trial process. What I did ask was for a review of any exhibits and items that had been recovered from Alex's property. Within a rollerblade box in one of her son's bedrooms, there was a number of items. There was about £2,500 in cash left in that rollerblade box, and along with a mobile phone. Interestingly, there was a note that was left with those items, and it said words to the effect of, if anything happens to me, tell the police and check this location out, which turned out to be Little Bridge Farm. There was also another note left in his bedroom, which was the PIN code to that mobile telephone. When my officers examined that mobile phone, it was quite chilling. There were a number of text message conversations between Alex Morgan and Mark Brown. And this is where Mark Brown had really preyed on the vulnerability of Alex. He'd kind of set this elaborate story where she was going to go and work for him, just merely for a weekend, where she could earn £100,000. I think the sad thing here, Alex, single mother, vulnerable, wanted the best for her two children and felt it was too good an opportunity to miss out. But she clearly was switched on enough to leave a trail behind just in case it wasn't quite right and something went wrong.
Leah Ware was reported as a missing person to Sussex Police by Kent Police after they found prescription medication belonging to Leah in a vehicle owned by Mark Brown. We started a missing person investigation, and it became apparent quite quickly that nobody had seen or heard from Leah for quite some time, up to 6 months. As we started to look in more detail at her mobile phone usage, her financial transactions, her interactions with medical professionals, and also with her friends and family, we became increasingly worried that something bad had happened to her. We knew that Leah had been in a relationship with Mark Brown for some time, and that she'd lived in a caravan and then in a shipping container on a farm that Mark Brown rented outside of Hastings. From the investigations that we carried out, it became apparent that Mark Brown would have been the last person to see Leah before she disappeared, and yet he'd reported no concerns and hadn't mentioned anything to the police or anyone else about what had happened or why she had disappeared. In the months after her disappearance, Mark Brown made efforts to make it appear that Leah was still alive. He collected her medication regularly, and also he made financial transactions using her bank account. His behaviour did create suspicions, as he gave many conflicting accounts of what had happened to Leah and why people didn't see her. He suggested that she'd been admitted to hospital, and then when concerned friends said that they wanted to go and visit her, he told them that they wouldn't be able to see her. All the people we've spoken to about Leah have been very clear about her love of animals. One of the things that Mark Brown did after her disappearance was give away one of her dogs. Everyone that we've spoken to agrees that she would never allow anything to happen to any of her animals or be given away were she alive. Although we've never found Leah's body, we've always been confident that she's come to harm at the hands of Mark Brown. And whilst no body homicides are incredibly rare and difficult to prove, through really strong partnership working with our colleagues at Kent Police and with the Crown Prosecution Service, we're able to build a really strong case that demonstrates that Mark Brown is responsible for Leah's death. Leah was a loving and trusting young woman. Sadly, her life wasn't without difficulties, and she became dependent on Mark Brown, and he used that to his advantage until ultimately it led to her death. The simple truth is that Mark Brown is a dangerous man, seeking to exploit vulnerabilities to his advantage, and ultimately betraying two women that right to the end has continually claimed to care for. I personally am pleased that he's been caught and that he won't be at liberty to harm any other women.
Sadly, Leah Ware's remains have never been found. Both Leah Ware and Alexandra Morgan disappeared at Little Bridge Farm, Hastings, 6 months apart. Detective Chief Inspector Neil Kimber of the Kent and Essex Serious Crime Directorate said, quote, "Brown is a dangerous individual who poses a significant threat to women. He preyed on the vulnerabilities of Leah and Alex and worked to build their trust, only to then exploit it for his own personal gain. It was important for his sentence to truly reflect the abhorrent nature of his crimes and ensure he's not in a position to harm any other women for the rest of his life." End of quote. Detective Superintendent Andy Wolstenholme of the Surrey and Sussex Major Crime Team added, quote, "We hope the conviction and sentence of Mark Brown will bring some sense of justice to the families of both Alex and Leah and allow them to come to terms with the tragic loss of their loved ones. Even though the court case has concluded, we are still committed to following up all viable lines of inquiry that may help us locate Leah's body and give her family some of the answers they so desperately want and deserve." End of quote. In an emotional statement, Leah Ware's mother, Rebecca Martin, said that no child should have their mother taken from them in such a brutal way. Leah was a mother of 3 children, and no child should go through finding out what atrocities their mother has gone through. Leah was kind, intelligent, and loving to everyone she met. She will leave a huge hole in her children's lives. Rebecca also said, quote, "I have sudden surges of mental and physical pain when I realize I won't see her again. The pain is so hard to bear." End of quote. She also said that is a sadistic torture that Mark refused to tell them what he did with her body, and the family has been left without the closure of a funeral or a place they can visit her. Her sister, Zara Ware, said, quote, "Losing my sister has been the most destroying and devastating experience I can imagine. A perverted psychopath has preyed on my sister and taken advantage of her loneliness. She will never have the chance to see her children again. How do you explain to children aged between 6 and 12 that they will never get to see their mother again?" End of quote. Gabby Barnard, Leah's cousin, said that Mark took 2 mothers away from their children. Quote, "He has prevented us from giving them a proper burial, and therefore we have no place where we can remember them. He has taken Leah from us, but he will never take our memories from us." End of quote. Alexandra Morgan's parents, Jackie and Michael, had been left devastated by their daughter's murder. In letters to Judge Hilliard, they spoke of the intelligence of their daughter and said that her main concern in life was to provide for her 2 young sons. Reading their statement, Duncan Atkinson, King's Counsel prosecuting, said, quote, "She was a bright, energetic woman with a determination to succeed and a strong work ethic. She had faced challenges, but challenges she was overcoming. She was planning a future for her 2 children. End of quote. And this is the case of Mark Brown. I just find it incredible, really, that he confessed to Elizabeth what he had done and no one picked on it. I mean, he didn't exactly say in those words that he killed someone, but he sure as heck described in detail a disposal of a body and what he had done. That would have given me personally red flags. Definitely it would have. But the truth is that I can't seem to find a motive for what he had done. Why kill Leah? Why kill Alexandra? He didn't say why, but it kind of makes me wonder, was it some kind of a sexual perverted game gone wrong? We do know that he liked to be dominant during intercourse. He liked gagging and restraining. Did he take it maybe a step too far? And why do I have the feeling that he's killed even more women that we know of? From my point of view, it's quite clear that he planned the second murder of Alexandra. I mean, he went back to the website, he lured her with the escort job that paid so well that obviously she couldn't refuse, and I don't blame her. £100,000 there, that's a lot of money. He then moved her car, he changed the license plate, hoping that he's not going to get caught, but luckily Alexandra did leave clues behind, which helped police catch him and find out what happened with Leah. He could have gotten away with it if it wasn't for Alexandra's note. I'm guessing that Alexandra, like I said, was trying to be cautious as well, considering that, you know, she was meeting with someone she didn't really know, and she was smart to think about leaving that address, you know, just in case. She caught her killer. She caught her killer. Simple as that. And also, she caught Leah's killer. It's just so sad, really, if you think about it. We have women who are struggling financially and they would do anything for their kids, and always escorts and those in the sex trade are most at risk of being killed. They are the ones who go with a stranger, really. They get into a car, they get driven God knows where because it's part of the job, and they don't know if they even return alive. And who can even see where that driver takes them to? It's not like they will be practicing those things in plain sight, in public, 90% of the time. Mostly they are doing it hidden in a car park, or, you know, in a hotel room, or in a house, a private property, wherever, you know, they would be hidden away. And most of the time they will keep this job hidden from their family and friends. And honestly, from my point of view, I think that this is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. Thank you guys so much for staying with me. Please do let me know what do you think in the comment section down below. And yes, that's it for now. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!